Aloha Jivas, welcome to another reading of Bhagavad Gita as it is by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad. We are still in the beginning of chapter 3, Karma Yoga, and we'll be starting with text 5. Nahi kaschit kshnanam api jatu tishtati yak karma krit karyate hyavashaha karma sarvaha prakriti jargunayahi. All men are forced to act helplessly according to the impulses born of the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. Purport. It is not a question of embodied life, but it is the nature of the soul to always be active. Without the presence of the spirit soul, the material body cannot move. The body is only a dead vehicle to be worked by the spirit soul, which is always active and cannot stop even for a moment. As such, the spirit soul has to be engaged in the good work of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it will be engaged in occupations dictated by illusory energy. In contact with material energy, the spirit soul acquires material modes, and to purify the soul from such affinities, it is necessary to engage in the prescribed duties enjoined in the Shastras. But if the soul is engaged in his natural function of Krishna consciousness, whatever he is able to do is good for him. The Srimad Bhagavatam affirms this. Tyaktva svadharmam charanam bhujam harer bhajana pakvo tapatat tato yadi yatra kva vabhadram abud umusya kim ko varta apto bhajatam svadharmataha. Translated as, quote, if someone takes to Krishna consciousness, even though he may not follow the prescribed duties in the Shastras, nor execute the devotional service properly, and even though he may fall down from the standard, there is no loss or evil for him. But if he carries out all the injunctions for purification in the Shastras, what does it avail him if he is not Krishna conscious? So the purificatory process is necessary for reaching this point of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, sannyas, or any purificatory process, is to help reach the ultimate goal of becoming Krishna conscious, without which everything is considered a failure. So due to the fact that we have been reincarnated innumerable times, we have become conditioned to the material world, which is illusory energy. It's not permanent. Nothing here is permanent. It's ever changing. This is not like the ultimate goal, like, being on earth time and time and time again. But because we continue to keep coming, we're forgetful, and so we are identifying with this material world, and identifying with, this body as who I am. And so once we become aware, or we start to question, what's beyond this material world, then we may start a process of purifying all of the layers of conditioning, that's covering up our soul and impeding our clear connection with identifying as the soul and our relationship with Krishna, or the higher power that's alive and within us. Right, so that purification process is necessary. It's a necessary part of the process of liberating ourselves from the cycle of birth and death. Okay, so text 6. Karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyartan vimudatma mitya charaha sha ujyate. One who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Purport. There are many pretenders who refuse to work in Krishna consciousness but make a show of meditation, while actually dwelling within the mind upon sense enjoyment. Such pretenders may also speak on dry philosophy in order to bluff sophisticated followers. But according to this verse, these are the greatest cheaters. For sense enjoyment, one can act in any capacity of the social order. But if one follows the rules and regulations of his particular status, he can make gradual progress in purifying his existence. But he who makes a show of being a yogi while actually searching for the objects of sense gratification must be called the greatest cheater, even though he sometimes speaks of philosophy. His knowledge has no value because the effects of such a sinful man's knowledge are taken away by the illusory energy of the Lord. Such a pretender's mind is always impure, and therefore his show of yogic meditation has no value whatsoever. These cheaters posing as spiritual leaders give religion as a whole and spirituality as a whole a bad name. You know, you can't really blame people for giving up on spirituality and religion, you know, when this is the reality. And it's kind of a shame because really, you know, the spirituality is such a personal experience and a personal inward journey. But having a bona fide self-realized teacher who can help guide you along the way, you know, when you have questions or even, you know, want to know the methods of Krishna consciousness, of Christ consciousness, of, you know, attaining our full realized eternal self in the kingdom of God. You know, it requires having a guide, and you know, that's what Jesus says, you know, only through me can you attain the kingdom of God, which, you know, is by Christians explained that only through Jesus himself, and really it's only through the mercy of the self-realized bona fide spiritual master, because otherwise, you know, we are so deluded by the material illusory energy. So, you know, it helps, and all of the Eastern traditions, you know, teach the importance of having a teacher. But when the teachers are posers, you know, just because, you know, as spiritual leaders, there's a lot of benefit, you know, like you're completely taken care of by an institution, and so you don't have to go to work and, you know, blood, sweat, and tears to, you know, pay the rent kind of thing. That's appealing for a lot of people, or they, you know, there's a lot of just like really troubled people, evil people even, in these positions that take advantage of the vulnerable and less fortunate people, as we've seen in the Catholic Church, but it's not just the Catholic Church. Probably, you know, this is just corrupt people in these positions of leadership that have some degree of power over others, taking advantage of it. I'm sure every tradition has these people in position. So anyway, it's sad, and And not only are they doing themselves a disservice, because here it's explained that Krishna takes away any benefit of whatever spiritual attempt they make, but they are pushing away others who may have some inclination towards knowledge of self. Text 7. Yastvindriyani manasa niyam yarabate Arjuna karmendriyahi karma yogam ashaktaha savishyate. On the other hand, he who controls the senses by the mind and engages his active organs in works of devotion without attachment is by far superior. Purport. Instead of becoming a pseudo-transcendentalist for the sake of wanton living and sense enjoyment, it is far better to remain in one's own business and execute the purpose of life, which is to get free from material bondage and enter into the kingdom of God. The prime svartagati, or goal of self-interest, is to reach Vishnu. The whole institution of Varna and Ashram is designed to help us reach this goal of life. Okay, what they're referring to is like the lifestyle, the progressive lifestyle of, being a student, then becoming a householder, raising a family, after which, when your dependents become independent and you retire from work life, then you then have an opportunity to enter into the ashram of sannyas, which is then to renounce attachment to those things and focus your time and energy on spirituality and devotional service and purifying practices, as this is nearing the end of your life. Okay, so a householder can also reach this destination by regulated service in Krishna consciousness. For self-realization, one can live a controlled life as prescribed in the Shastras and continue carrying out his business without attachment, and in that way make progress. Such a sincere person who follows this method is far better situated than the false pretender who adopts show bottle spiritualism to cheat the innocent public. A sincere sweeper in the street is far better than the charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living. So it's saying here that, if, let's say you've gone through those ashrams of being a householder, and maybe, after your dependents are, have become independent, you may still not be ready to take on that sannyas lifestyle, and that's okay too. It's saying here just to, like, what was that first line? It's far better to remain in one's own business. So it's like, just focus on yourself and where you are at. You have to be honest with where you're at. This is saying, like, just because you may be of a certain age doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and become, a renunciate or sannyas and devote yourself to meditating all day or whatever. It's not about that. It's about being honest with what you are and making progress true to where you're at. And through the honest progress, through the honest attempts and endeavor, I should say, the honest endeavors that we do in devotional service, those build upon itself, and they are purifying acts that eventually mean, like, you'll know when you're ready to make the next step or whatever. If not in this life, it's you'll take off, you'll start from where you left off in your next life. So it's a promising and hopeful message here that takes the pressure off, I guess, because when when you're under pressure, sometimes you make wrong choices, and you do things that you may not be ready for. And so it's saying, to try to avoid that, because otherwise, you're cheating yourself and others. Because to pretend to act like you're in a situation when your mind, like, so for example, to pretend that you are, like, renouncing sexual desire, which is one of our bodily urges of sense gratification, and meanwhile your mind is like going crazy over it, like dreaming of women or men or whatever it is. It's like, obviously you're not at that stage. And so that's why the ashram of being a householder and having a spouse and children is designed for the majority of people to be able to, I guess, live according to be able to control the urges in a way that isn't sinful, I guess, in a way that isn't going to cause yourself and others harm. And so yeah, that's just about being honest with yourself. That's the first step, is to get a real take stock of where you're at in your life, and from there you can sort of envision a path of progress. Okay, so thank you for listening, and I'd love to hear from you, any comments you have, and I'll see you next time. Hare Krishna. Have an awesome day.